And of course, the news today that Harry's memoir is going to be published in the near future will just alarm the royal family here in England about what he's actually going to say to earn his money. Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. I think personally, they've separated their professional lives. But I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
A new piece of information has just emerged. And if even a fraction of it turns out to be true, it could rewrite the entire narrative around Harry and Meghan's marriage. For years, the story presented to the public has felt carefully curated, polished, controlled. But now, whispers of a buried detail are surfacing, one that might finally explain the gaps and contradictions that never quite added up.
Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. And I think as of this week, the signal for her great problem is that she turned up at Kevin Costner's.
And here's the twist. According to royal biographer Tom Bower, the real signal of trouble didn't come from a press release or public appearance. It came from a clause buried deep inside their prenuptial agreement. Not just any clause, one that could carry devastating weight if things ever fell apart. What's got everyone hooked? The claim that this wasn't something obvious or easy to understand. And that alone should give you pause. Because when someone signs something they don't fully grasp, especially at this level, it can come back to haunt them in ways no one saw coming. Here's the detail that keeps surfacing. Page 14. Clause 7. Language that Harry allegedly didn't fully comprehend at the time he signed it.
Are they insane? What is happening? There is complete and utter chaos going on. The Meg and Herald are taking their rebrands far too literally at this point. Archewell, their charity effort, has not only changed its name from a foundation to Philanthropies, which is even worse branding, I might add, but there is a whole slew of drama going on behind the scenes.
Now, let's be clear, none of this is confirmed fact. But the very suggestion is turning heads. Because when you line it up with certain moves that happened later, people are starting to connect dots that were previously overlooked. Take the reported return of Sunshine Sachs in early 2026. Through this new lens, that decision looks very different. That firm doesn't handle routine PR. They specialize in high-pressure crisis management, especially when a public image needs to be carefully controlled.
The insider revealed Meghan has made it clear that if and when they do split, she would demand a hefty settlement and to keep her royal title. She won't go anywhere unless it's with a title, property and a huge sack of money. Meghan will make a deal to protect herself. Wow. Tasha is with me now.
Yeah.
This is astonishing, but remember, it comes just weeks after that Vanity Fair bombshell that Meghan is already shopping the post-divorce book to publishers.
So naturally, some observers are asking, was that move just routine, or was it part of something much bigger unfolding behind the scenes? Then there's another layer. Financial decisions dating back to around 2022 that once seemed random now appear strangely strategic. Again, not confirmed truth, but more like a pattern people are piecing together after the fact. Here's the thing about isolated moments. On their own, they don't mean much. But stack them together, and suddenly you're looking at a narrative that feels deeply intentional. And that's exactly why this topic is gaining traction. It offers a completely new angle on a story people thought they already understood. Part of the reason this is blowing up? It's not just about the claim itself. It's about who's making it.
Aggressive PR for the Sussexes got way beyond herself, because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it, or even letting anyone know about it.
Tom Bower isn't some random voice shouting into the void. He's spent decades digging into the most complicated stories, backing up his work with meticulous research. Before royal scandals, he was a barrister, then an investigative journalist at the BBC. He knows how to take a messy situation and find the real story hiding underneath. Over the years, he's dissected figures like Robert Maxwell and Muhammad Ali, He's even mapped the inner workings of Simon Cowell's empire, showing exactly how power and influence operate behind closed doors. So when Bowers speaks, people don't just scroll past over. His approach is methodical, not speculative. For his book Revenge, he reportedly conducted dozens of interviews with people inside Meghan's professional and royal orbit, including those familiar with contracts and legal structures. He doesn't rely on anonymous rumors. He builds arguments step by step, showing how different systems collide. In this case, how California law and royal tradition are on a collision course.
But I do think that when you're mocked so publicly as they've been, their value begins to nosedive pretty quickly. And I don't think they're finding any more sources of income.
Last week, we brought to you fresh news that Harry had been staying at the San Vicente bungalows to take a break from his family, despite owning a sprawling Montecito property together with Guesthouse. And this week, those rumours are intensifying.
Last week, we told you Harry had been staying at the San Vicente bungalows, taking a break from his own family, despite owning a sprawling Montecito estate together. And this week, those rumors aren't fading. They are intensifying, which is something most people never even stop to consider. So when a claim like this surfaces, it's not about the headline. It's about the possibility that there's more moving beneath the surface than anyone is willing to admit. Let's keep things grounded for a moment. Most prenups are actually pretty standard. They outline assets, shared property, and what happens if a relationship ends. They are designed to protect both sides. But in certain cases, especially those involving public figures, unique clauses can be added depending on the circumstances.
Meghan herself.
And Meghan herself.
In the months before she met Harry, was setting up paparazzi pictures in London. She now acts as if the paparazzi are literally the devil incarnate.
She begged the paparazzi to photograph her and they wouldn't. And when they did, she says, "Oh, I don't want to, I'm hurt." And that ridiculous story about how they first met, the whole thing was a tissue of inaccuracies, to be polite.
Well, because what do you make of that? Because as you know, Harry was always very insistent.
Harry was always insistent about certain boundaries. And these agreements typically include rules about titles after separation, along with expectations around public image and media involvement. A famous example? The agreement between Charles III and Diana Spencer, which reportedly outlined exactly how her title would be handled after their split. So right from the start, these contracts are far more layered than what most people ever see. But here's where it gets even more complex. Enter California law. Unlike royal systems, California follows community property rules, meaning anything earned during a marriage is generally considered shared. That includes major deals like Netflix, Spotify, and the entire Sussex brand.
So many surprises, by the way, tucked away in your book. Everybody is already buzzing because you reveal that Simon is not a fan of Jennifer Lopez. I was not aware of this. You say he can't stand her. So set the record straight for us, Tom. What's his beef with J-Lo?
Well, he just found her just too vain and too self-interested, which seems like he met his own match. But in the end, Simon doesn't really like many celebrities. I noticed when I went with him to the Oprah Winfrey Show and many other places around Hollywood and elsewhere, he's a rather shy guy. He's always afraid of being associated with people who are bigger than him or who might put him in the shade. But in the end, he's pretty critical of people. He doesn't like Elton John. He doesn't like many of the people who are really famous in the music business. You know, he's critical.
The way it's being described, this clause cuts deeper into intellectual property rights. Who actually controls the stories, the projects, the brand deals tied to their public image? That includes joint ventures, media content, even Harry's memoir, Spare. If that's accurate, then this isn't just about money. It's about ownership. Long-term control over everything they've built together. And here's a part that really has people talking, the claim that this clause may lean more in Meghan's favor. One reason being discussed is her reported role as the business manager behind many of their deals. She's said to have been heavily involved in negotiations and structuring partnerships, something that could carry serious weight under California law.
As the fairy tale Prince Harry and Meghan Markle embarked on in 2016 become an absolute nightmare for them. Despite marrying in St. George's Chapel in Windsor, it seems like life hasn't been so rosy for the couple. They have gone through endless challenges, the vast majority of which are all self-inflicted. And this weekend, we had some new news that seems to kind of reiterate the idea that Meghan Markle, she wants to go back to the past. She wants to relive her glory days because she has hired Sunshine Sachs as her new PR representatives who were representing her back in 2016. And at the same time, Harry is in the UK fighting for a court case that really has no bearing on any of this, but we have heard endlessly that he wants to reestablish himself.
Again, none of this is confirmed, but it's exactly the kind of detail that keeps the conversation alive. Now, the story takes another turn. According to these claims, this clause wasn't even part of the original 2018 agreement. It was added later, through an amendment. And that's a huge detail, because amendments can completely reshape how an agreement works, especially when new businesses and income streams enter the picture. The claim goes even further. Harry may have signed this update without fully reviewing it, trusting the process and the relationship at the time. Prenup amendments are actually more common than people realize. Couples update agreements after major life changes, having children, buying property, launching businesses. It's a way to keep things aligned. But in this case, timing is everything. Tom Bauer reportedly points to 2020 as the moment this update happened. And that lines up with a major shift in their lives.
And what would Diana think of Harry attacking William in that way? She'd be appalled by her son's behavior. And that was, again, so nauseating, the way he kept on bringing in Diana. Diana, who appealed to the media all the time, who phoned journalists secretly, who brought Martin Bashir into her office, who cooperated with Andrew Morton, who kept on calling Richard Kay. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Looking at it from that angle, updating a prenup during that period actually makes sense. Their entire financial structure was changing. New opportunities were pouring in fast. But what makes this particular amendment stand out is the suggestion that it introduced terms that significantly impact control over their shared empire. And if that's true, it adds a whole new layer to how people interpret everything that happened after. There's another layer to this story that people can't stop talking about, and it centers on Meghan's past, long before Harry ever entered the picture. According to Tom Bauer, he spoke with legal professionals involved in Meghan's first divorce from Trevor Engle's son. And what they described paints a very specific picture. They said she was extremely detail-focused during negotiations. Someone who didn't just skim documents, but went through every single line carefully. She reportedly questioned clauses, reviewed terms closely, and worked with more than one lawyer to lock everything in properly. That kind of approach isn't casual. It shows someone who understands exactly how much these agreements can shape the future. And from those same conversations, a key idea keeps emerging. The lesson she reportedly took from that first divorce was to always protect long-term earning potential above everything else. When her marriage to Trevor Engle's son ended, she walked away without ongoing financial ties. And that didn't happen by accident.
A man who she abandoned for months to the media and now presents her mother, Doria, speaking for the first time, telling outright lies about her ex-husband. I mean, this was a calculated attempt against the families.
It came down to how everything was structured from the beginning, keeping things clean, controlled, and strategically sound. And when people look at what happened later with Harry, they start to wonder if that same mindset carried forward into a much bigger situation. Now shift to 2020, because that year keeps showing up as a turning point. That's when major deals started rolling in: Netflix, Spotify, and the launch of Archewell, which operates across both business and media spaces. According to Tom Bauer, this is right around the same time the prenup was reportedly updated. Line up those timelines, and you get a moment where personal, legal, and financial decisions were all happening at once.
Tom Bauer, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
Under California law, income earned during a marriage is typically shared. That's the baseline. But what's being suggested here goes beyond that. The claim is that this amendment introduced terms focus more on control, not just splitting earnings. Meghan is reportedly listed as a primary figure across several business registrations. Her name appearing first on documents has caught attention. That detail might not seem huge at first. But in legal and business settings, positioning can matter more than people realize. Then there's the part that really locks people in. According to these claims, there may be language giving her stronger control over the Sussex brand itself if the relationship were to change. That includes not just revenue, but ownership tied to projects, image, and long-term business identity.
Well, you know, Piers, you're the first person to say how limited Prince Harry is, unfortunately, and how his wife trades off her husband's fame and fortune, or not so great fortune now. I mean, this is the problem, but we're still interested because, after all, he's a great character in our modern day.
Back in 2013, when separating from Trevor Engelson, she reportedly made it clear to her legal team she wanted a clean exit. No ongoing financial ties. No shared assets that would require future contact. Full independence moving forward. That kind of strategy isn't emotional. It's planning. And that's why some people believe it connects directly to how things may have been handled later. Another interesting detail, Sunshine Sachs. This isn't just any PR agency. They handle high-profile public situations, including celebrity separations and reputation management. Meghan reportedly first worked with them around 2017, just as her relationship with Harry was becoming public. They've been linked to cases like Katie Holmes during her split from Tom Cruise. That's the level they operate at. Then, in 2020, not long after major changes in Harry and Meghan's life, the firm was reportedly no longer part of their team.
And so he became hypersensitive and blamed the media for the crashes of his relationships, never thinking that they could have something to do with himself. So he's a very complicated, depressed, unintelligent man who is seeking a role and has got really nobody on whom he could rely, which is in the end where Meghan stepped in. I mean, a needy man met a woman who could help him with his needs.
The public explanation at the time pointed to budget reasons. But according to Tom Bauer's sources, there may have been more going on behind the scenes. Stack all these details together, and you start to question whether anything unfolded as simply as it seemed. There's one more part of this situation that's really getting people talking, and it has to do with timing. According to Tom Bauer, the decision to step away from Sunshine Sachs in 2020 was reportedly about bringing communications in-house through Arch Ewell. More direct control over messaging. At the time, that seemed like a strategic shift. But now? Fast forward to early 2026, and the reported return to the same PR firm is raising serious questions.
Well, I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable, but I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it. And secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
Why bring them back now? That's where the speculation really builds. Firms like Sunshine Sachs are often brought in ahead of major public transitions, especially when narratives need to be carefully managed. Not stated as fact, but recognized as a pattern by people inside media circles. Preparation starts months in advance. Shaping public perception. Organizing messaging. Making sure everything lands the right way. So when you look at the timing, some observers feel like this is more than just a routine business decision. And the conversation doesn't stop there. Another major focus is what Meghan has reportedly been doing on the financial side since around 2022. One of the biggest talking points, the launch of her lifestyle brand, a separate venture under her own name. Instead of being tied directly to shared entities, this move stands out because it appears independent. Trademark filings reportedly don't include Harry. And alongside that, reports of her attending business meetings solo in Los Angeles add another layer. When people look at these moves together, some say it follows a very specific pattern: build an independent identity, create separate income streams, reduce financial overlap. Again, none of this is confirmed as a clear plan. But it's the kind of sequence that gets analyzed closely, especially when compared to past situations. Tom Bauer suggests the real focus shouldn't just be on the prenup itself, but on these financial decisions unfolding over time.
Breaking right now, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle spent the week using the With Love Meghan promotional campaign to try and suggest that everything is rosy in their very, very rocky marriage. Not so fast, says Radar Online, which has revealed that the Sussex couple are now sleeping in separate beds. Let me take you through this bombshell, then we're going to get reaction from the royal YouTube sensation, according to Taz. Here's the report, though, from Radar Online. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's marriage is said to be under major strain as backlash has gotten under the Duchess's skin so much that she's sleeping apart from her husband and wondering whether or not she would be more popular on her own, Radar Online can reveal. Amid ongoing rumours about the Sussexes' marriage being on the rocks, insiders told us Markle is cracking under the pressure of public scrutiny as she tries to claw her way back into Hollywood and launch her lifestyle brand, leaving her marriage to Harry hanging by a thread. Insiders told us Markle is starting to unravel and wonder if she would be better off as a solo act. Meghan is said to have even started to look up divorce lawyers. Sources claimed Harry was confronted by his unhappy wife.
Then there's the business side of things, which adds even more context. The Netflix deal was widely reported as being worth around $100 million. But according to industry perspectives mentioned by Tom Bauer, deals like that usually depend on delivering specific content over time. It's not a single upfront payment, it's a maximum potential based on performance. Some projects moved forward. Others, like an animated project, didn't. The total earnings may have been lower than expected, and that's where things get even more interesting. Around the same period when some projects stalled, Meghan reportedly began filing trademarks for her independent brand. New business entities were set up, separate from existing structures. Legal groundwork was being laid. At the same time, discussions about financial restructuring emerged, including how assets like their Montecito home are held under California property protections.
Apparently Prince Harry is already talking to divorce lawyers?
So this is kind of interesting. This is the woman that the papers are citing for this reporting is a longtime royal insider, a socialite. She's been right. I've been following her because she's great TV. She's been right about a lot. And she's claiming she's heard from several sources now that he's hired a lawyer, and it happens to be somebody who's a great divorce lawyer and specializes in divorce. And it dovetails on other reports that he is spending a lot of his time in two hotels, one of which is in Montecito, another of which is not too far away, as an escape from her. It's entirely plausible. All they've done for 5 years is complain and moan and see themselves as downtrodden victims. That doesn't tend to spur a lot of feelings of love and happiness and close bonding. I mean, I guess in the crisis mode, it might.
Stack all of this together, and you get a situation that has people watching very closely. 25:57, microphone / voiceover. Another detail getting attention, how Meghan's recent projects have been structured. According to Tom Bauer, several ventures appear to be set up independently rather than jointly. Her podcast deal with Lemonade Media, reportedly under her name. Her children's book, The Bench, a solo project. On the surface, that might not seem unusual. But look at the bigger picture, and some people believe it signals a clear change in direction. It's less about shared branding, and more about building something individually controlled. That's why 2022 keeps being pointed out as a key turning point. According to this perspective, that's when Meghan reportedly began shifting away from joint ventures and focusing on her own projects. Around that same time, observers noticed she appeared less frequently alongside Harry at events, unless it was required. Now, here's where the speculation becomes even more intense. There's a claim that if certain legal conditions are met, major changes could happen quickly.
At that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap and give it gratis. And this year, she is desperate to be seen. Yeah. And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem because he's lost his charity centre Bailey in Africa. He better up, and all these commercial deals are declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and there'll be problems with that too.
I mean, we've seen people leaving Invictus recently. I think that's you mentioned the Disney special. Does the Disney special at all?
28:17, microphone / voiceover. According to this theory, California law requires a minimum residency period before filing for divorce, which Meghan already met years ago. So from a technical standpoint, timing wouldn't be an obstacle. But let's keep perspective. These are predictions, not confirmed actions. Still, the idea of a specific timeline has people watching closely. 28:43, Microphone #voiceover. If a situation like that were to unfold, several processes would begin almost immediately. Legal agreements would determine how assets are handled, how titles are used, and who maintains control over shared business ventures. One of the most talked about aspects, intellectual property. Who controls the brand, the projects, the public story moving forward? That's where this alleged clause becomes such a huge talking point, because it could influence more than just finances. There are also discussions about how assets like their Montecito home could be handled. In scenarios like this, properties are often evaluated and either divided or reassigned based on legal structures. The same goes for business entities like Arch Ewell, where ownership and control would be carefully reviewed. And when it comes to family matters, things become even more sensitive. Since their children are based in California, any decisions would follow local legal standards focused on stability and consistency.